Hi, everyone. Welcome to Office Hours. If you are watching on YouTube, you'll see a little link down below, and you can click on that link, and you'll end up in Zoom. You'll then see another link that you can click on in the chat. You end up in Mukana, and that's where you become a producer for the show. You decide what we're going to talk about, so it's important for you to try to find your way there, and then you're driving the show. So any questions that you have around media or virtual production for the first hour, and then the second hour is something that we've decided to spend a little bit more time on. Now, if you think you can answer the questions, you just need to be here by 6:40 a.m. Pacific Standard Time to do the mic checks. That way, we're sure that you're ready to go into the show. You can get here as early as 6 o'clock in the morning and just hang out with us. I can't promise anything. Today it seemed like there was a lot of reminiscing about hard drives. So hard drives and tape decks and somehow Sandia National Labs fit into the whole thing. It was just a windy little road that we had here this morning. So you never know what's going to happen. I can't promise anything, but it is a time, by the way, you hear us all reminiscing or talking about whatever we're talking about. It's really there for you to raise your hand and let us know that you need to check your system and be ready for that. So definitely always feel free to do that. Second hour, as I said, is really something where we just go, okay, well, we'd like to spend a little more time. This week we're doing a couple different Ruthless reviews. First audio on Tuesday, and then on Thursday we'll do video Ruthless reviews. A lot of this, I think a lot of people wonder why we push so hard. A lot of us we're trying to kind of create a show that hasn't been created before, like that is above and kind of stands above a lot of the other things that we've seen in the past. And so to do that, we have to constantly kind of be pushing each other, pushing ourselves to produce better content. I'll argue that the video and audio here are better than most broadcast shows that you see when they have remote people coming in, significantly better. And so it's gotten to the point I have to admit that I have a hard time watching TV that has remote folks coming in. Even through their insert studios, we sound better and look better than most of the professional insert studios. So we're already at a pretty high level, but we want to keep pushing it as we get ready for the fall, where we're going to make it look a little bit more like a show. MixEffect Pro is here on Wednesday, so I'm pretty excited to have Adam Toe, who is the creator of MixEffect Pro, will be here tomorrow to discuss his work, and then on Friday. We have we're going to talk about the USDZ format and what it is and why it's important to us. Even if we're in video, that 3D format makes a difference. And then also, if you're interested in education, things are heating up. We're going to talk a lot about education, but we're not putting it on YouTube. So if you want to be part of the education group, it's a really interesting, the secret group for on Saturday mornings. And that one's from 9 to 11 instead of 8 o'clock because we have 2 hours of Q&A. Q&A kept on running into education, so we decided to give them both more time. So 9 to 11 for the education hour or education hours on Saturday. All right, Bill, let's go ahead and take it away.
Absolutely. We start off with a note from Rupert McCrae in Dallas, Texas, and he asks, CBS will be using an all IP or Internet Protocol production at the Olympics using Grass Valley equipment on Cisco networks. When does a broadcast event become a stream event?
I mean, there's been a bunch of us that have been calling internet broadcasting for a long time. so it's I think that it's just a term at this point. Go ahead, Stuart.
Yeah, simple terminology, but the easy definition is when it's not provided over a cable or free-to-air service. When it's provided over the internet, it's a stream.
Or just an internet broadcast. So, I think that at this point, in some ways, you want to say internet broadcast because streaming means so many different things to people. I've been pondering stop calling it live streaming altogether because it's just, streaming is something that people get very confused about. Internet broadcasting makes a little bit more sense. But yeah, I believe it's an all 2110 backbone for that show. Next question.
Moving on, Rupert McCrae has a second question this morning, and he says the AWS reInvent Conference, that's Amazon Web Services, is in December. In-person attendance, this surprised me, is $1,799 US. Virtual attendance is free. In cases like these, are the in-person attendees basically subsidizing the virtual production?
Maybe. I think it's kind of unfortunate for the virtual attendees because I think that, while it costs a lot of money to go to something, time is important too. And when they say that they're going to give it away for free, sometimes you feel like they're not going to invest in it as heavily as they could. They're going to put some cameras in the back and let you watch it. So usually that's an admission that they just don't know how it'll turn out. So I think so let's not get people upset and want refunds. And so that usually is the now. I think that Apple did a pretty good job, and some of the other ones have done a good job on their pieces where they put a lot of effort into it, regardless of whether people were paying for it or not. So I think that the reality is that if you're not going to do anything specific for the online audience, there's no extra cost, or very little extra cost to streaming it out. So I think that's probably what all they're going to do is stream the pieces without a lot of extra bells and whistles, which again is hard to watch. Jeffrey.
Yeah, I totally agree on that. I think though the extra vendors, the ones that get booths at there, it would be interesting to see how they handle in a virtual environment if they end up allowing them to get into some of these virtual conference type web pages so they can talk to people that are not at the conference as well. I think that would actually add to their thing, and maybe they could end up figuring out a model to start charging on the virtual side of things. Whether somebody would pay for it or not, I don't know.
I mean, something we ought to think about if it doesn't conflict. I don't know. Does it conflict with IBC? I don't know what the dates are. It's December. I know IBC is in December as well. Do we know if they overlap? Maybe someone can figure that out. But if they don't, maybe we can also do something where we have a presence there and do discussions, with folks that are there. Our version of their online conference might be kind of an interesting way to kind of figure that out. It also, if you were a cloud company and you wanted to prove a point, you could charge for it and give it away for free, and then announce we have 50,000 people. We have 300 people in attendees and 50,000 coming in online, and next year we're just going to do it all virtually. so that would so that would not be a bad way to make the point. So I think it'll be interesting to see what happens. Next question.
Boy, Rupert McRae was crushing it in votes this morning because his is the third highest rated, and it is any comments on the new 4K 60 HDR Elemental Link encoder?
I have one right here. So I'm working on a little video on it right now. They sent me one out to test. I'm going to unplug it so it won't. Little pretty lights won't be on it. Hold on, let's see. Oh, maybe I can just unplug it from the internet, so it won't show the internet. But this is the new Link encoder. It's pretty awesome, I will say. So the updates from the old Link encoder is that it has a little readout on the front, which you can't probably read, but it tells you, what the name of your link, your IP that you have here, and whether you have SDI input, and whether you're streaming. So it'll tell you those things. The old Link didn't have any of that. Turns out it really makes a difference. Like you're looking over trying to figure something out, and you can just look at it and see that, oh, I'm not getting input, or I'm not doing something else. It turns out to be a big deal. The other little things, power screws on now, which is, I know Guy had one. It used to be stick it in and turn it 90 degrees, and now it's just got one of the standard pieces in there. Otherwise, the back end is pretty similar to the previous one. You'll see some of the tests that I did with this. I didn't talk about it explicitly, but those HDR tests that I did on YouTube, which are on the Alex Lindsay YouTube page, you'll see HDR test. That's with this little encoder. So what we're talking about there is a tiny little box. The distinctions between the new Link and the old Link, it's still Zixi. I believe that it says it'll go up to 90 megs a second. I set it to 50, but it says it's when you see it, when you look at it, it says 90. So it's up to 90 megs a second Zixi. I don't have that much bandwidth in my house. So what Zixi does really well is goes, oh, I can't do that, but it saturates my line. And then it is 10-bit, and that's why I was able to do HDR streaming. So I basically set a camera to PQ and then pushed it out straight out of the encoder and then send it to HDR10 to YouTube, which you'll see me playing with it. So it doesn't always work, but it worked pretty well, I thought. And so the bit depth is a big jump. Also 16 channels of audio, which is important if you're doing lots of languages or if you're doing eventually immersive sound. It doesn't fix anything yet, but it gives you the opportunity for that, to do it. So those are some of the big updates to it from the old Link. I think it's about $5,000 is the name. Now that may seem like a lot of money, but for a 4K 60 box, the last one that I bought I got it on sale for $50,000. so and again, there are other 4K encoders, but they don't do 10-bit or 16 channels. And so that's one of the big things that distinguishes it, is that you can get, that kind of professional ingest at $5,000 is a pretty big deal. So the other 4K encoders in the same space don't have that. And so for us, or for me, it's important. And this is the box that will most likely be streaming as we go into the fall. We'll be streaming office hours, as we go into it, because I can't take the big boxes. The big elementals that I spent a lot more money on they have a lot of other features. They have eight inputs, and there's a lot of other mapping and a lot of things that I can do. I can promote to Dolby Vision and do immersive and do a bunch of other things in them that can't be done yet in the cloud. So there are reasons to have the bigger ones, but for what we're doing, this is going to be really great for us to do. It's a huge jump up from the last one, which was something that was years in the making. So go ahead, Jason.
Yeah, two questions, Alex. First, is it quieter? It looks like it's about a half RU.
It makes almost no noise.
Whether or not you should put them next to each other. But
it's a little warm, but the entire one of the things you'll notice is that it's rough here, and so it is the entire body is a heat sink. So it's a little warmer on the outside because it's sinking out. Yeah,
and the second question is, where's the Gavin Belson signature? That's really what it's missing.
The what?
The Gavin Belson signature. Remember from Silicon Valley? What's her name? Had the prototype. Yeah, never mind.
I only watched it. I watched it until Colleen's character wasn't on as much, and then I stopped.
Colleen had the prop behind her. Remember?
All right. Anyway, next question.
Aaron Giancarlo in Flagstaff, Arizona is up next with looking at the Beelink computer to use as a Zoom client, plus recording a breakout room. Would the entry-level system be sufficient for this purpose, or should it have more computing power?
Go ahead, Jeffrey.
So if you're getting the Intel version, you should probably get at lowest i5, but I highly recommend the i7 for that. And then, of course, if you're going for the AMD, try for the Ryzen 7 version. Don't get any cellular, or not cellular, but they're lower end processors, because you're not only doing Zoom Room, you're also trying to record, and you're going to need a little bit more beef on that.
If it's video out that you're trying to get from a Zoom Room, so you're trying to record that video at 1080p, you'll be fine. If you have a 1080p connection, note that you will not get if you have a 1080p solution, 1080p setup for Zoom, your video going through the Beelinks until you get to 4 cores will be 720. So it's limited, we think artificially, but it's limited at it needs to have 4 cores, or it will only be 720 into Zoom from that computer. So as a client that's going into Zoom, it'll be a little limited. On the way out, it should be just fine. Next question.
Comes from our friend Hazma Gajar in Cape Town, South Africa. MixEffect Supersource is great. I've used a preset Supersource that comes with the app. After editing the preset, though, how do I save it and recall it?
Go ahead, Guy. Can't hear you. Oh, hello. Can't hear you.
Am I not on? Okay, there we go. It's the plus symbol. That's right. I don't have a telestrator. Jeez, man, what's up? It's a little plus symbol in the top there, and once you hit that, you'll get a new Supersource layout, and I'll just call this one Hazma G. So let's see, HG. Okay, and then when you want to recall it, it'll be in there, buried. So you can see that I have like this one called test that I made, and if I click that, it recalls test. I have another one from Add in the Kitchen. I click that, it recalls Add in the Kitchen. So it's a plus symbol.
And then you can have different settings within it, right? How do you save those extra, like the 1 and 2 that's there? Do you know? So you have the plus to add it, but you see that right next to plus, 2 over, it says 1 and 2. Those are different, slightly different looks, right?
I think that these sort to, are they different looks?
Yeah, they're like, if you look at some of the ones that are built into it, it'll show it a little bit easier. But they have like, one will get bigger or smaller based on but it is the thing. We'll talk about it more tomorrow, but I feel like the Supersource, while there's a lot of other tools that it provides, the Supersource is kind of the secret weapon. Yeah, go ahead, Jason.
Yeah, just one more thing to add. Our friends at Here to Record, if you don't want to come up with a whole bunch yourself, I think it's $5 or something, and you've got a ton of them, and they're very easy to edit in any text editor. So yeah, take a look at heretorecord.com if you want just inspiration, if nothing else.
Mm-hmm. Next question.
And Hazmak is battling Rupert for question supremacy. He's got 3 in here. Here's the second one of them from Cape Town. ATEM Extreme HDMI Out 1 has buttons on the ATEM for MV program cameras and so forth. Buttons on the ATEM do not control HDMI Out 2. Apparently for HDMI 2 Out 2, one does that on the ATEM software to choose the out option. How is this done?
Go ahead, Jason.
In the ATEM app, if you go to outputs, so file, macros, and then the third one is outputs, you get to choose output 2, and then it's just a pull-down menu.
There you go. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Right. And just whatever you want to send out of it. And it's the idea, I think, is that you generally, for mine, for instance, that's my multi-view. And I think that the most common use for these outputs is multi-view out of one and program out of the other, which is how I'm using it. So I think that one of them you want to be constantly, you might want to be able to switch around, but the other one tends to stay as multi-view because you need a multi-view. Next question.
And Hasmukh again wants to circle back to the MixEffects macros. He says, if I have been able to save an Supersource preset, how do I save that preset in a macro so that with my StreamDeck, I can hit just one button to run the macro?
Go ahead, Jason.
Easiest possible way would be to look at the XML and copy that macro. Just basically copy the Supersource code directly into the macro and then save it. That's the easiest way I can think to do it.
Yeah, go ahead, Guy.
Yeah, the other one is to look at one of the Facebook posts that Andy, the developer, put up, and he gives the link to the StreamDeck companion files where you can actually load them in, and then you can modify those at your will, and then go ahead and just push one button and have them as a StreamDeck button instead. That'd probably be the easiest because you're limited on macro buttons on the actual ATEM Mini Extreme itself.
Go ahead, Beju.
Yeah, I was just looking on that as well. The nice thing with the MixEffect is it has an option, a button at the bottom to set all the settings. So you don't have to go and manually click all of the settings like you have in the ATEM software. So basically start the macro recording, go to the Supersource, pull up the preset you have ready, save all the settings, save the recording. That should save it as a macro in the pool. Then you could pull it with any software.
That's great. Next question.
Douglas Carmichael's up next, and he says, Jeffrey, do you think the Amazon Live workflow would be as low friction as it is if it didn't rely on the iOS app? I know it supports RTMP, but I could see a web-based tool being equally as effective.
Yeah. This is something that we talk about all the time, and it's just surprising that it's only on the iOS app, especially since they could go over to Twitch and say, hey, let's make this same web interface for Amazon Live. Not even the Fire tablets can set up and do Amazon Live events. So it's very limiting for sure, and it's so easy to switch over. I don't know why they don't do it.
Next question.
Hasmukh is back with scheduling Zoom meetings in this particular case. Which settings have to be set before scheduling, and which settings cannot be changed once a meeting is scheduled or a meeting has started?
I'm fairly certain that what we found so far, at least, and someone may be able to correct me, is that if all the stuff in the web page, not in the event page, but in the web page, when it asks for that, when you start a webinar, it goes and finds all those preferences, and then or a Zoom meeting, and then it posts them. It doesn't go back and ask again. So what we have found is everyone leaves immediately and comes back in, and immediately is there. Something that we turn back on again will be there, but it doesn't happen while we're changing the web page. And I think that might be a safety feature, so you don't have an admin like going through stuff and working on stuff and then having it just change in the meetings while that are live. I do believe that if there's many of those, I don't know about all of them, but in the meeting setup page, I think if you go in there and change those, I think it will actually update the meeting. Go ahead, Richard.
I think one of the biggest ones I find that you can't affect after it's scheduled is the host being able to unmute guests. That has to be set up before the meeting in the different settings. That can't be adjusted after you've set the meeting. You would have to delete it and restart.
I do believe that, I think all the things in the setting menu in the web page, not in the meeting page, but in the web page for settings and admin, I think all of those are only asked for as the meeting is being created. And then anything in the meeting, I think that you can actually make adjustments to. Next question.
Keith Harrison in London has an audio question. The audio MIDI setup on my Mac allows me to change the sample rate from 44.1, 48, or 96 kilohertz. When or why would I change this?
Carl?
So generally for what we're doing here, let's say in Zoom, 44.1 or 48 would be perfectly fine. 96 if you want to record into Logic. So GarageBand is fixed to 44.1, which is kind of good in a way because it just makes it simple to use. But Logic and other audio recording software allow you to record at high resolution. This is good if you're doing sampling, but generally for Zoom, for streaming, for those kind of things, 44.1 or 48 are perfectly fine.
Go ahead, Bill.
In the early days, 44.1 was the audio CD standard. That's why that caught on. 48 kilohertz is the video DV audio standard. So that's widely used. And 96 is what the audio files are people who want to capture the maximum amount of data. Those are kind of what it settled on.
Go ahead, Greg.
Yeah, I think typically you want to set that for whatever the sample rate your files that you're trying to play out are at. So if it's mostly music, typically they'd be 44.1. Again, anything with video, typically they'd be 48, and 96, of course, is the high res.
Yep, go ahead, Stuart.
Okay, so if you're using the MIDI, you're the audio creator. So talk to the person who's doing the audio mix or the editing for the project as a whole. Ask them what standard they want everything in and do that.
When in doubt, and if you don't have any input, 48 is generally more common in a general workflow, in production workflow. 44.1 is something that we see occasionally, but I mean, it's 90% 48. And the rumor is that it has a lot to do with Avid. So Avid kind of decided it was 24 and twice 24 is 48. But Avid made it 23.98 and 48, which means that there's a little math that has to be done every single time they make that conversion to make it all line up, because we didn't pick whole numbers. All right, next question, Bill.
JHB in New York is up next with, I'm updating from my original ATEM Mini and looking at the Extreme ISO. How soon do you think their TV studio line will be refreshed? Thanks.
Go ahead, Carl.
If you're looking at a ATEM Extreme now, buy the ATEM Extreme now. It's well worth it. The only thing you're not going to get is SDI. If you need SDI, then it's up to you if you want to wait. But if you're itching now, if you've outgrown your ATEM Mini, then upgrade to the ATEM Extreme. That's not a problem with that.
Jason?
I own both and absolutely love both. The real difference, I think, is just the tactile display panel. And of course, the mix minus with the camera out via SDI. But they are both solid units, and good luck guessing when.
Yeah, one of the big unknowns is that we talk about this almost every day. The electronic shortage and chip shortage could mean that we don't see a lot of new releases of anything for a little while. And even if we do, we may not see the ability to order them anytime soon. So there's a bunch of pressure there right now. So you may be waiting for a little while, but we don't know. The summer has traditionally been a time when ATEM or when Blackmagic releases new products in July and August. So it's hard to say. I will say that I think a lot of us felt a little cramped inside of the ATEM Mini as we got into it, and the Extreme is just, for most of us as a desktop editing solution, has solved most of our issues. Next question.
Comes from Daniel Goldstein in Washington, D.C., and Daniel says, I'm finally upgrading my old iPhone 7 Plus to an iPhone 12 Pro Max. What new things can I do related to AV events and other things we talk about here?
Go ahead, Carl.
So I did the same upgrade. So I went from the 7 Plus up to the 12 Max. You'll get the wide angle camera. You'll get much better cameras. You get in-body stabilization. So it is a much better video camera by far. For photography, it's out of it's one of the best cameras in the world for photography because it's always in your pocket. As far as connections, you're going to get faster streaming from 5G, even the base 5G. If you've got it in your area, you don't need to have the super close, super fast one, but the base 5G is very strong, and it will fall over to 4G if it's not found, and it's actually quite good when it falls over. It doesn't lose anything generally.
Go ahead, John.
Jason had his hand up first, I think.
It doesn't matter. It's just who I called.
I wouldn't upgrade right now to the 12. The 13 is going to be out in 4 months. I would wait 4 months.
Jason?
With respect to what we do, I would say hardware Atmos decoding, so spatial audio and whatnot with the U1 chip. Also taking pictures while you're shooting video, 4K 60 with HDR and full color gamut.
And LiDAR. Yeah, and so the thing to play with, and we're going to do an extra hour once I have a little time to look at it, or a couple of us have had a little time to look at it on the object capture. But the LiDAR does make a difference in the object capture. So you're basically it's using the object capture. I have to play with it a little bit more, but it appears to be using all of the lenses, or at least multiple lenses and the LiDAR all at the same time. This is not just like we'll just do some captures with your camera. This is we're using the entire camera to take a picture of that object and to derive data. What the LiDAR is doing specifically is edge detection. So one of the big problems you get into is it doesn't know where those pixels are, and the LiDAR can tell it where those pixels are. So I'm planning to do a fair bit of work inside of that. And so hopefully it's probably going to be next week, because I'm technically kind of on vacation, which means I only have 3 or 4 hours of work to do a day, but I'll be at the beach. Usually that means that I'll be doing lots of photogrammetry. Usually me on vacation means photogrammetry. So next question.
JHB is back from New York with, I've noticed what looks like the use of drones on golf TV coverage and other sporting events. Have drones made their way into live coverage, or were they wire cameras?
Go ahead, Carl.
Yeah, so Rally has. So the Rally challenge around the world, I think it's called Rally Cross now, they've changed the name. They're using it because the spectators are aware they're in a precarious location, so they feel comfortable using that because the cars are going past the spectators like at 2 meters anyway, so having a drone. So I know they're using it in that particular, that's a worldwide broadcast as well, using some 8-prop drones.
Yeah, go ahead, Jason.
I would be very impressed to see a cable cam on a golf course. That would be quite a feat. I would say at very least for establishing shots, they're almost certainly doing it. As far as the rest of it, my guess is it's just, that really good guy whose, trick is to just track the ball really well.
Yeah, go ahead, Stuart.
Yes, golf's using it. Simple reason, it's cheaper than a helicopter and it's quieter, and golfers like quiet. Odd thing that I spotted watching video yesterday, a drone chasing oval track cars around a dirt track, and that was pretty cool. And it was live pictures to the Jumbotron at the track. I mean, that's just cool, and that's what these things can do. But be aware that near crowds, the speed something's moving and the heavier the camera gets, the more dangerous it gets. There is X classes with red cameras on them. That's a lawsuit and a lethal thing waiting to happen. So keep them small if you're going to be doing this. Small light drones are safer.
Yeah, a lot of the flyovers are using pretty large cameras for the flyovers before everybody shows up, for golf. So to do the establishing shots, and it used to be a helicopter. Now it's much better. They can get much lower and do better shots, for a lot less. They get to do it a couple times and so on and so forth. And so anyway, so those are also available. The other thing to know is that there are camera operators on very, very, very large poles, very tall poles at these golf courses. We streamed the Open a couple of years in a row, and in Scotland, and they have these giant poles that they erect that the camera operators stay up and get a lot of those aerials, because you don't want to have something constantly landing and taking off, landing, taking off, and so they're up there all day. And there's lots of stories about what happens when you're stuck up there all day. Anyway, next question.
Moving on to Sam Greenwood in Toronto, Canada. And Sam says, Alex, you talk about how much you like connections. Have you watched Computer Chronicles?
I have watched Computer Chronicles. I did watch it. I at the time the Computer Chronicles was out, I was a pretty advanced state of what I was doing. And so for me, it wasn't fast enough. Like, I know you never think that it would be, but most of TV wasn't fast enough for me for a long time until we got into the kind of the fast edits of YouTube. I think that it was hard to keep my attention. So that kind of, even like the Tech TV thing, I could be on it. I have a hard time watching it. So because people just don't get to the point fast enough for what I need. So I don't know why this makes sense, because we're all talking about things and it's something new all the time and we're bouncing around. But for me, I wasn't able to watch it for too long. I know Chris Fenwick, who's not here right now, actually worked on that show. So anyway, but I know that I watched it a little bit, but it was usually stuff that they were covering was stuff that I had already made decisions about. I was pretty deep in it at that time. Next question.
Elliot Byron, New York City, actually has a question that's a bit long, so it's in two parts, but I'll just do them all together. The live music venue I work in has video monitors scattered around, so when going to the bar or lobby, you don't miss any of the show. In the original install, fiber was installed. Because of the A to D, analog digital and digital analog conversion at each end, there is significant latency. What are some of the recabling options to eliminate or reduce this? Audio is sent separately.
And in the future, I just want to kind of put out there that you have to figure out a way to shorten your don't send us two questions we took the notes out specifically to keep the questions shorter. Go ahead, Carl.
So if you're going from, if it's right now, if you got optical in there, fiber in there, that's generally best case scenario. Like Blackmagic makes some SDI to optical converters, and you can put them at the other end, so you can make sure you can go out to whatever you want. I wouldn't suggest recabling if you've got fiber in there, because I would suggest putting fiber in there. So if your fiber ends need to be changed, which means they may not be compatible with the modern systems, that may be something you need to look at, so that someone can change ends on your fiber. But generally, that shouldn't be a big problem.
Go ahead, Stuart.
Firstly, I think this might actually be Elliot's first question, because he was asking how to ask a question in the chat.
Yeah, go ahead.
Second, I don't believe there should be any latency on a fiber setup. That's the whole point of fiber. It's the fastest connection you can do. So maybe the problem latency is in something else in the system, like how it's converted from
the hard part
is played out.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's converting baseband to fiber and then back to baseband is probably losing 2 to 3 frames. Is my guess, maybe 4 frames of data. So that would be it would be faster to have in this case, if you're coming copper out of the switcher, if you want to hedge that off, copper to a distro and then copper to the screens, it just depends on how many screens you have, will be faster. Like you'll cut 2 or 3 frames off of the latency, because it'll go out there with nearly zero latency as it goes through there. So because you're coming straight out of the switcher, if you're taking the same program and especially out of there and move it out, but I don't think it's worth it. So I think that it being a little off but you want to look at those the converters that are going from baseband SDI to fiber is what's causing the latency. Definitely not the fiber, as Carl alluded to. Go ahead, Beiju.
I think the question is the other way around. The video is actually coming behind the PA audio for them. So the issue is that he needs to delay the video to match up, because the audio is
coming ahead of the audio.
The video is coming behind the audio.
No, that's what we would
expect.
The
audio is coming behind the video, because the audio seems to be on a separate PA system. The displays are coming directly, so he wants a solution to bring that in sync, I believe.
Yeah, go ahead, Carl.
Simply embed the audio into those SDI channels that are going out to those screens.
Yeah. Or put a decimator on the video. it'll start slowing it down. It'll slow it down a lot. Delaying video is not a trivial problem as you go into it, but you can. There's definitely video delay units if you had to do that. Next question.
Sam Greenwood in Toronto says, on a StreamDeck, is there a way to toggle from the companion page to a different page without quitting companion?
Yeah, go ahead, Jeffrey.
I think this is what he's asking here, and I'll show you with my StreamDeck. I got the 32 button here. First 15 buttons are companion, and then all these buttons on the right are actual regular buttons. If you've only got the 15 button StreamDeck, then you would then just not assign one of those buttons as a companion button and then use that to open folders. I'm thinking that's what you wanted.
Yeah, I think that's great. Next question.
Our friend Emily Russo in Red Hook from the education panel. Often moving soon, what is the best setup I can create to use while the move is in progress and still join the panel? And she's working with an 18-inch MacBook Air.
2018.
Oh, 2018. You're right. It's not
18-inch MacBook Air would be amazing. Amazing. Go ahead, Carl.
So you can use the camera in your MacBook Air. Just make sure your lighting is good, and make sure your audio is good. So they're the two things you want to be careful of. But so you want to have, if you've got a headset pile, that'll be good. Make sure you're using headphones and not using speakers in your MacBook Air. And lighting. So if you've got a lamp, just point the lamp at a wall, right in front of you, so it makes it a broad light. So lighting and audio are going to be the two key things, because the MacBook Air has a decent 720 camera if you give it enough light.
Yeah, go ahead, Bill.
Well, I was going to say I did that on my little vacation or my trip to California, and I wasn't able to use the system, but I had one of my little light panels that I mounted north on a telescoping rod. I used the Logitech 920 as my camera because I did think that the MacBooks tend to have only mediocre cameras at best. That and some kind of interface that allows you to use an external mic is really my minimum kit for on-the-road streaming.
Go ahead, Stuart.
I would say if you're using any decent camera, run your microphone into the camera and use one of the little HDMI to USB capture ones, and just go with that because it's a nice simple setup. But again, exactly like Carl said, with all the lighting, that's got to be right too, so that the camera gets a good image.
My little travel kit is two of these little guys. These are the Pavo tubes that I use for those, and they're USB-C chargeable, so that kind of works out well. And then I'm using a Countryman with a USB mix pre, but you can also use a Pile, or if you can carry around a smaller mic, that's fine. So the Pavo tubes and then the Brio is what I carry on the road for those. So the Pavo tubes, the Brio, a little headset mic, however I interface it in the laptop, and that's pretty much the whole kit and it all fits in my carry-on, which is important. Next question.
Peter Pergenhalter looks like from Vienna, and I might mispronounce that. I'm sorry. How does Alex do the draw over video thing? So there we go.
I'm going to get better at this. So as I keep on doing it. So the way the draw over video works is that I have a Wacom tablet, and then I have a Mac Mini, and I have the ATEM. And what happens is the Wacom tablet has two outputs. It has a HDMI. It has an HDMI in because it has a screen that is taking video in. And then it has a USB out. And so the USB connection goes into my Mac Mini. The Mac Mini's HDMI goes out to the switcher, and the program of the switcher goes back into here. So now what I'm looking at when I'm looking here is the program of my switcher. Now, what I do inside the switcher is I have what's called a downstream key. I'm using specifically downstream key 2 because I use 1 for my Keynote pieces there, which I should put this. The next time someone asks this, I'm gonna have this all in Keynote. That'll be great. So anyway, and I'll circle things. So that way you can circle things that you're bringing into a Keynote. So then I have the downstream key sits over top of my video. So this is the program down here. And then the downstream key is where I draw, whatever I'm drawing, I draw it, and it basically is comped over it. Now to do that, all I'm doing is black and white. The image, if I actually cut to it, looks like that. I mean, without the I can turn off the downstream key so you can see it. There you go. That's what I'm drawing, is a soft edge like that. And then if I cut back, there it is, comped over it. Now, what I do is I have the fill is green, and the key is that I invert the key. And then if you look at the, let's see if I can do this easily here. If we grab this here, just give me 1 second here. So if I go into cut to this,
Alex,
what you're
physically,
see
how
here
big is that surface? How big is your
this
Wacom?
is the 16 inch.
16 inch.
Yeah, the Wacom 1 is the one that you want to use there. Now, if we look at key 2 here, you'll see that this is my clip and this is my gain. And if I play with those, so watch how I play with the clip here. I'm going to draw something here. And what you'll see here is, see how it gets thicker and thinner based on my clip. So that's where I'm going to cut it off. And my gain, if I turn it too low, I start grabbing some of the background. So I bring it just up until I bring the gain up just until I flatten, I get rid of the background. And then I play with my clip to decide. Now it'll also start, a high clip will start to show up as well. But I usually play with the clip to get the thickness right. And by doing that, you'll notice that I have very nice soft edges on it. So that's the big thing that you don't see in a lot of telestrating software is to make that work. So that is I think my best description so far of how to do this. But the next version of this will have a Keynote document, and then the next version after that, I'll just point you to the YouTube that Hosmuk's team makes. Go ahead, Guy.
Yeah, so when you're drawing something like that ATEM box in there, do you find that 16 inch is big enough to be able to actually write legibly ATEM in there, because we have like teachers that do complex stuff, and it just seems like you're running out of space with the smaller ones.
I can definitely, the big thing is I can make it thinner. So if I go here like ATEM, and then I go into my my dialog here, let's see if I turn the clip. See if I clip this down to be thinner like this. Now I can, and that's partially because I made it so soft. So I can make it smaller. I find that you have to remember that some people that are watching on a, they're watching on their phone. And so when you run out of, part of this is if you run out of space, you may be drawing too much. Like this is where we talk to people and say, not so much detail, like just go to something new. So you'll see me do a lot of stuff where I draw things like this. Now what I do is I have a clear space on my pen. So I just tap it and it disappears. So that's how that works while I'm drawing. But what I don't want to do is put so much detail. Like you don't put as much detail as in because you're constantly changing that frame, and making it easier for the viewer to watch it. You have to remember that you may look at it, and if you have I used to have a 22-inch Wacom tablet, and what happened was I started drawing at a resolution that wasn't viewable. So it was great for me, but it wasn't great for the viewer. And so it was good to force myself to have a smaller surface because it was easier for the viewer to actually watch it. And that was, I switched to the 16 maybe 5 years ago. But I had the first 3 years was on a 22, and I just noticed that I had a tendency to draw things. And what would happen is this got started. I started using this telestrator about 10 years ago as I was teaching classes in Rwanda from my offices in San Francisco or in Petaluma. And so I could watch the students start to squint and look forward, at what I was doing. I realized I was drawing too small. So on the 22, I started making it all thicker, and then it was fine. But then I just learned, why don't I just get a smaller one? And also the 22 takes up a huge portion of your desk. So I already have space issues on my desk as it is. So having the 16, I find that the 16 works great. There's a 16 Cintiq, which is really expensive. And then there is the Wacom 1 or Wacom 1, whatever and it works fine. The only thing it's missing is the keys, which I don't use because the only key I use is this one. And so the key is the keys that are on the side of the Wacom aren't on that one, which is a little bit, but the interface, the USB-C interface is much better than the weird pin thing that's on the side of the Cintiq. So the new version, which is, it's half the cost, it's like $400 and some. And it's now, I think they got forced down there because of the Chinese manufacturers were getting really, really inexpensive. And when Wacom was twice as much, it didn't make sense to buy the Wacom again. When it was, 15 or 20% more, probably still worth it because it's a really well-made piece. Go ahead, Stuart.
I got to ask, because I noticed this time around you've said both pronunciations.
I'm switching because I don't know what it is.
Behind why you say Wacom instead of Wacom?
I'm switching back and forth because I don't know.
I just figured there must be a story there, because otherwise it sounds like something from a cartoon.
It's Wacom?
Wacom.
Oh, so I was wrong on both of them. It's Wacom, but it's actually Wacom. Wacom. And why is it Wacom? Do we know?
That's how the rep says that sells them to us. So Wacom is the way that
it was
they
the unknown Three Stooges.
I didn't even. That's the worst part is I was trying to cover my bases and I was wrong on both times. I thought I had a 50-50 chance, and it turned out I had a 0% chance. So anyway, all right, Wacom, the Wacom tablet.
My rep always said Wacom, so Wacom for me.
Yeah,
go ahead. Monroy would say that he was told it was Wacom by the developer. So
yeah, this is the drama that we deal with the Wacom, and Wacom. All right, next question.
Douglas Carmichael will lead us out of the woods. What is the greatest consensus regarding software subscription programs like PreSonus Sphere versus purchasing software licenses outright?
Go ahead, Carl.
So I can talk to the software subscription that Roland do with Roland Cloud. So they have both options. You can actually buy the software, so a software synth, let's say, for like $150 US, $100 US, or you can pay them, $10 to $15 per month. It's up to you. So some people who do project-based, they'll switch on their subscription for a month or two, do the project, and then switch it off. Some people like me who just like to play for fun will buy the synth we want.
Go ahead, Bill.
I have two minds with subscriptions because I think there are two kinds of subscriptions. One subscription to me is I am renting someone's intellectual property, and when I stop paying, I stop using their intellectual property. There is another kind of subscription that I'm dead set against. And sadly, one of the big players, Adobe in the industry, uses this for their software. And that's a subscription where they are allowing you to use something, but you are building your own intellectual property inside of it. And if you stop paying the subscription, you are disallowed access to your own IP. Those I am against. So I will always buy something if the program is capturing my work, but I will be happy to subscribe to something if I am subscribing to your training class, like lynda.com, just bought by somebody else. That's my distinction line, and I think it's a bright line for me.
Go ahead, Stuart.
There's two reasons why companies are moving to the subscription model so often. The first is it was part of a battle against piracy, which they lost anyway. The second is because they want to sell you the product as a service instead of as something you buy. So it's a service you continue renting, and you can see the same thing happening with some cars now where they prefer you to have it as a continuous lease and you become a continuous revenue stream. And you have to pay to have different features turned on in the car, even if you buy it second hand from another owner who's already had those enabled. Yeah, it's just how they want to continue a revenue stream from the customer.
I don't know what effect it had on the industry, but there was a organization of artists in the early aughts called Pixel Core, and all these companies were selling things for thousands of dollars, and we persuaded them to make them available for our artists for a subscription price. And a lot of people thought it was a really good idea. So it was, and it was all happening in 2002 and 2003, and no one had done it at that point. A lot of the people that we worked pretty closely with at the time ended up at Autodesk, and Autodesk was one of the first to kind of do it. There were a lot of executives that kind of moved from RealViz and Softimage to that, and so anyway, I don't know what it had effect, but a lot of us saw that there was an opportunity to give people something where they didn't have to pay for everything. Now, my idea was a smaller subscription price for a lot of different pieces of software, for only educational. My thought was people should buy it. They'll buy it when they need it for production, but they should pay a small amount of money to have access to it while they're learning it. And so you got basically $8,000 or $9,000 worth of software for like $50 a month, along with all the other things that Pixel Core did. And so, but it, obviously kept on growing from there. So, it's a lot of us were thinking about that. And the idea is to give the artist a better, way to get a hold of software that at the time was super expensive. I do agree with Bill that I find the Adobe one specifically to be fairly obnoxious. And I still have a copy of Photoshop, but there's not this is the problem that they're creating is that we use Affinity Photo for everything we can. Like I open everything in Affinity Photo first, and I even give feedback. Like the TGA output on Affinity Photo was a couple of us constantly pushing at them to, like, I need that for my ATEM. I have to go back to Photoshop every time I have to do a TGA output. So there is a lot of us that have pushed back on it, and I think it's the best thing that ever happened to Affinity Photo and Pixelmator and everything else is Adobe's subscription model, because a lot of us are we haven't found our way out completely, but a lot of us are trying to find our way out because of it. Jeffrey and then Jason.
Adobe also found a whole bunch of beta testers because they put out beta versions of their software. But the reason why I wouldn't do PreSonus's, the one that you're talking about here, is because they're not giving you a price unless you go and log into and create an account there. And then they've got you at that point with emails and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. That's annoying as all heck. I'd rather see the price before I even give them my email.
Go ahead, Jason.
I think the motive is twofold, at least on the Adobe side. And yes, plus one to what Alex said. The minute I can drop them, I absolutely will. And until then, yep, I'm going to subscribe to it. But it's very simple. I think that they didn't want to have to keep patching old versions because people are like, I want my $600 out of my Photoshop. And then the second reason is that Wall Street always prefers annuities to gross revenue.
Well, and also, the annuity to gross revenue makes a big difference. And also, for instance, there have been very few additions to Photoshop that I needed since like 2010. I haven't needed any updates to Illustrator since version 6. So that's that's their problem, is they put out stuff that is more and more edge solutions for high profile, high performance people who really push it. And for a lot of us, we just didn't need the updates. And so no one was upgrading, because until there was a new OS that required something that had to move forward, people just wouldn't upgrade because they didn't need it. That's the problem with the model. Next question.
Lawrence Owen in Nottingham, UK says, whoops. Oh, there he is. Okay. Currently, I can't afford expensive hardware, but still want to gain experience in live production. What job description should I look for? And how can I make myself useful to live production in other capacities?
Go ahead, Jason.
I would say you're going to learn more as a PA about how sets work than pretty much any other single seat in the house.
Yeah. Get a PA job and then treat it like you're getting paid $100 an hour. Or 100 pounds an hour, which is even more. So, but the PAs who, even if you have other skill sets, if you don't have the job, get something that gets you in there. But then the mistake PAs make is they treat it like they're getting paid the amount that they're getting paid. Oh, I'm only getting paid $10 an hour, $15 an hour, or whatever, and they're not, really playing hard. And then you just don't hire them again. It's not a problem. You just as a producer, you're just like, okay, well, they were fine. But the ones that you come back to over and over and over again are ones that are they're on it. Do paying attention. You can tell that even when you're in the back of the room, they're keeping their eye on you. So as soon as you look over at them, they're looking at you like, what do you need? And how do I get that? And then what happens is while you're having lunch, you find out, oh, they do camera work. Oh, really? Well, maybe we'll put you on one of the cameras, and then we'll have, so what you want to do is build up your skills, but you get in as a PA because that's getting you around the producers and the coordinators and everything else. But you have to play that game really hard, and not annoyingly, like not constantly coming up and asking them for things, or especially not constantly having suggestions. That's a great way for a PA not to get called back. So you just play, stay in your lane and do it really, really, really well. And then, again, at lunch or something like that, you can talk a little bit about, oh, I'm doing some camera stuff and or I'm doing this, or this is what I want to do. And if they already know that the hardest part to find on sets is people who will do exactly what I just said, which is just play hard and stay in, really do what they need to do. A lot of producers will look at that going, well, I can train them to do the other parts. that training people to do the actual technical things is easier than training them to be good on set. So that's the thing that you always want to look at. Go ahead, Bill.
If you want to get into this industry, Alex has just given you $100,000 worth of good advice. We don't hire people necessarily for their skills. We hire them because they fit in. I've heard the term good hang. That's just somebody you like being around because they don't annoy you when you don't want to be annoyed. And when they do interact with you, they have something useful to contribute. You be that person, male or female, and you can work in this industry for a long time and you will rise up, because it's all about your presence there when you're working as part of the team.
Yeah. From Harvey, I think I quote this every single time. It's just Elwood, who is the lead person in Harvey, said, my mother used to say to me, in this world, Elwood, you must be, she said, you can be oh so clever, or oh so smart, or oh so pleasant. And I recommend pleasant. So go ahead, Greg. There you go. Can't hear you.
I did a bunch of research 2 summers ago on this very issue, and I have to say that +1 to Bill, because that was the number one hiring requirement. From all these people from the film business in Hollywood. Yeah, that's what they wanted.
Yep. Next question.
Moving on, Douglas Carmichael has another question in the queue. He says, if I don't go with the gaming laptop route for a secondary PC next to my Mac and go with a mini ITX PC, what would you suggest to reduce desktop clutter? Would a KVM switch or remote desktop software be the most effective route?
I tend to go towards KVM because it's a little lower latency. It's a more direct connection. I have got a KVM for like 4 things up here right now, and that works really well for me. Next question.
James Babbitt of San Diego is up next with, hi, Alex, which ATEM Mini is needed to make the telestrator?
Works with all of them. So every ATEM Mini will do it. It's because you just need one downstream key to make that work. Next question.
Douglas Carmichael again. What Windows laptops with RTX graphics would you recommend that have a CNC machined aluminum body similar to the MacBook Pro? I know of the Razer Blade range, but I've heard mixed stories about their quality control and customer service.
Go ahead, Carl.
Intel MacBook Pro running boot camp.
Oh, there we go. Yeah, it's pretty useful. There's a surprising number of people in the Seattle area that run Windows on a Mac. Anyway, go ahead, Guy.
Yeah, Carl, does the graphics card though offer an RTX in the? Yeah, so if you wanted to run the Razer Blade, the 15 that he's referring to, and I'd say just get it. I mean, it's running solid for me. I have had some dust that's gotten inside of it that I need to clean out that can be contributing to some heat problems. But for the last year, I've had 2 crashes, and they've just been in the last couple weeks. And Jonas was telling me that it's probably because the dust, and because I do get a lot of dust in here. And it's just a nice machine, and it has the 8 gigabytes of video RAM, which is NVIDIA, and the Intel Core i7. And I upgraded the RAM to 32, and it's a champ with vMix. So I'd recommend.
Go, Jason.
You know, now guys got me thinking whether or not the high-end ThinkPads actually have something to compete with that, and I'm not convinced that they do. I love ThinkPads, but that sounds pretty solid.
All right, go ahead, Stuart.
As somebody who's owned old versions of high-end ThinkPads, including one with a titanium shell and machined alloy case inside, the ThinkPads have the metal inside for heat dissipation rather than on the outside to look pretty. So yes, you can get the same, but they will come with a Quadro rather than an RTX.
Next question.
Chris Earl in Maitland, Florida has the next one. If I have an FS browser, why is that not parsing for me? Window web app as an ATEM input. That will apply various CSS transforms, fades, moves, scales, and so forth, the images, text, etc. Would I get better overlay results with a black background Luma Key or a unique color background Chroma Key?
Go ahead, Carl.
So I understand the CSS part. So just because you have alpha channels in images that are on websites, it doesn't mean that'll translate when you put it into an ATEM. Mm-hmm. It must be a TIFF file with an alpha channel, a PNG with an alpha file. So maybe that website does have a PNG image. You will need to save that as a separate thing. You can do it by.
But I think that he's talking about a live output from that web page to the switcher. So full screen.
Which is going to be
full screen is what I missed there.
Yeah, so I think the question is whether you want to put it over color or whether you want to put it over black. Go ahead, Jason.
Yeah, so it's not really about how you're doing it, whether it's a cascading style sheet or anything else. It's about the color that you're trying to represent on the screen and the color that it's going to be on top of. Yeah. So I've got to go with Mickey and say it depends.
Yeah, so I will use Luma almost all the time when I come out of a web page. So I happen to think about this a lot because Mukana actually has a tool to push to lower thirds, which you probably saw during our dub stuff, and that was all Luma Key. And the reason that I use Luma Key specifically is because the Chroma Key is 422, which means that the color is half the resolution of the image. And so if you key the chroma, you will get stair stepping or aliasing along curved edges or anything that's not straight. That's the problem with the Chroma Key. And so we use the Luma Key, and what that limits us to is that we can't go to pure black, and no one notices, because compression increases the dynamic. It basically crushes, whether it's going out to H.264 or to zoom, it will crush the blacks either way. And so what you can do is you can raise your black level to about 15%, or if you're in Keynote, you lower your contrast by 2%. It'll have the same effect. And it will look black, but it won't be black. And so then the keyer will key it, but it'll still look black in the thing. And we've been doing this in broadcast for like 30 years. So there's nothing new about this. Where it doesn't work is fading in. So if you fade something in, motion blur doesn't work. It's one of the reasons that a lot of motion graphics don't have motion blur, is because they had to key it and they were using Luma keys to do that. And in the motion blur, it doesn't work very well. So those have been some of the issues. We've done both. I've done Chroma and Luma for the last 20 years. And we use Chroma when we have to. When you have blacks or some very complicated things, or everything else we'll use Chroma. But it's you have to know that you're going to get aliasing. You're going to get a higher resolution out of the Luma if you can work within the limitations. And we literally design our graphics around it. So I just design graphics without a lot of black, and then it's fine. So you just want to think through that as you work through it. Go ahead, Jeffrey.
And if you do get it perfect, if you switch browsers, all of a sudden all the rules have gone out the window. So it depends on what browser you're using. No,
because you're doing it. Well, I do it in the. I don't have any problem with the browsers because it's because that black I'm setting in the CSS sheet. So it's we have with what we have, we can set that, and we don't seem to have any problem with it. But maybe I will admit that 99% of the time we're using Chrome. Next question.
Douglas Carmichael's back with, why do you think Amazon is going all in on bringing back AWS reInvent in person despite the larger global audience they could have had as an all virtual event?
The more I thought about that question, the more that they may be making a statement. We'll see what happens. But if 300 people show up in person and 50,000 show up online, that gives them the green light to get rid of the in-person version in the next year. I think that this is actually more of a, we'll see. I think that it's serving the people who really want to go. I think what you're doing is you're serving the people who really want to come in person and serving the folks that come online. But if the online audience is between 100, if the online audience is 100 times bigger than the in-room audience, there won't be I don't think there'll be a physical version the next year. And I think that 50 to 100 times is how much bigger reInvent will be online versus in person. Next, and it's not just going to be this one. If that actually happens and Amazon publishes that, it's going to have a huge impact on events, and that is good for Amazon. All right, next question.
Douglas Carmichael back with, as someone who's passionate about so many areas, IT infrastructure, media infrastructure, audio and music production, video, online events, and so forth, how would you suggest finding an area to focus one's plans on?
Go ahead, Carl.
So just create a project for yourself, or attach yourself to a volunteer project or community project, and offer your services that you do know about to them, and you'll find out very quickly what part of the industry you'd like and what part of the industry you find rewarding.
Bill?
And I would just say that, yes, there is still some pressure to specialize because you want to be really good at something. Specialization helps. But this is the era where media creation in general is so needed and wanted out there that you can skip around a little bit. And I have found that I've spent part of my careers concentrating on audio. I spent part of my career concentrating on design and advertising. I've spent a lot of it in video production, and all of those other things that I've spent time in informs how I go about making content now, whether that's video, slideshow, whatever it is, it all works together.
Part of the intention with the volunteer program that we're putting together for office hours is to give people an opportunity to try different things and work on different things and figure out whether that's what they want to do or not. Within the Pixel Corps in the past, what we did is we had team leaders with senior artisans each with junior artisans. And this is what we called a clustered cell. And basically what we would do is we'd rotate the junior artisans once a month. We'd rotate the senior artisans every quarter, and we'd rotate the team leaders every year. And over a couple of years, you'd learn a lot of different things. So it would take you some time to get through all of it. But in 3 or 4 years, people were getting to a point where they had an incredible pack of knowledge that they had actually worked on things with other people that knew what they were doing. And so we're not going to do that immediately, but that's probably where we're going to go, is back to the clustered cell that I found I found a picture of the Pixel Corps logo. The old Pixel Corps logo is actually that training mechanism zoomed out. When you zoom out and look at the clustered cell, you see the triangles. That's where the triangles came from. And so it's a very old, very old thing to do, 20 years old, but we'll probably dust it off as we, after we go through the first level of chaos, which is just kind of figuring out who goes where for a little bit. Go ahead, Chris.
I always thought that logo was brilliant.
Oh, thank you.
Really, it said so much with a shape. It was just brilliant.
Thank you. Thank you. I once, Walter Murch once saw it, and I handed a card. I was talking to Walter Murch about something, and I handed him my card, and he's like, and he sent me like 3 pages about that. Like it's got a lot of, it looks like other things. You see it in other places. Go ahead, Carl.
Yeah, the first time I saw that logo, I thought Sapinski. So
yeah. Next question.
And the last one in regular questions. Hasmuk is back from Cape Town. Not a question, but a comment. My sincere apologies to Bill for not spell checking my question yesterday. My excuse, it was 2 minutes before top of the hour.
As a producer, Hasmuk will just let you know that we're cutting your pay in half.
Yes.
So
cut it by 4 times.
You know. Yeah, exactly. We got one question before we start jumping into the actual mic checks. Let's go ahead and pop that one in.
Okay, it says Ruthless Audio, but on WWDC 2021 edition, parts 1 and 2, there is noticeably more audio compression. Is this due to a different audio chain? How do you determine the settings for compressing your audio?
It oftentimes leads up to the, it depends on the audio engineer. Interestingly enough, the audio engineer was the same person on both of them, but was listening to it differently because Andy was on site on Monday and off site on Thursday, and he may have just heard it differently and made a decision about it. But that's probably what happened. It's definitely something that we're going to be refining as we go through it. So we're gonna stick with this kind of old way of doing it as I buy hardware and put it together and build it up, and then mid-July we'll start going back into the new system to see how it works. And then as we're hoping to get most of the new system running. This is also going into having different groups volunteer in different areas and everything else to kind of get it up to speed. But most of it will be running in August, probably pretty roughly. And then, but by September 1, our goal at that point is to have a pretty refined audio chain with, and we're still figuring out what that's going to look like. If we're still in shared audio, we may have the panelists all get working with Tucker, have Unity comms open and see. We're going to experiment with separate audio pipelines, for that, which has a whole bunch of potential issues, but we'll see. Anyway, so a lot of those things are going to be we'll be experimenting with in August, but the goal is to have kind of the advanced pipeline by September 1. That is probably more advanced and more complex than most broadcasts. So it's going to be pretty interesting. And of course, we'll share it with everybody as we go through it. Go ahead, Bill.
Well, I was just going to say, one of the things, hearing compression is a difficult thing for a lot of people. You really have to pay attention to what it sounds like, because moderate compression, things start getting a little more present and things like that. I came to understanding a little more about compression when I got into breath suppression, because the more I compressed an overall signal, the higher the became, and that was something I didn't like. So when I found myself having to do a lot of breath suppression, it told me that I was getting to the outside edges of too much compression and to start dialing things back. And that's an overall, to keep dialing back and dialing back and dialing back is something I pay attention to a lot these days.
All right, so now what we're going to do is we're going to jump into the Ruthless reviews and see how our audio works here. So again, as folks, as we've talked about a little bit earlier, is our goal. We're never really focusing on the way it is everywhere else. So I think a lot of folks are like, well, it's pretty good right now. We want to keep stretching out, and keep on improving our audio and video to a point where it's just stunning, and so what we keep on doing is coming back and looking at our audio, and then we'll look at our video as well to try to get to a point where we're not just as good as broadcast, but we're better. And I will say that for the most part, when I listen to listen to the pre-hour when I'm out making my breakfast and coffee and everything else, and listening to all of you, that it's very pleasing to listen to, and I think that when I listen to NPR, I feel like I've dropped 25 to 50% in quality. So, it really is, because they have all these call-ins. They have people calling in, and they have, and even because they use Neumanns, they have these headsets, these big headsets.
They let them take the Neumanns home. Why?
Well, but the problem is that people, some of the hosts will turn their headset up too high, so you can hear, if you're wearing headphones, you can hear them, bleeding through, because those Neumanns are so sensitive. And so anyway. So I feel like we're getting to a good place. I just want to keep going, keep maintaining the direction. So what we're doing is we're just going to go around. We'll talk a little bit about our audio chain, with everyone so that people understand. I think that's part of it. I know that Chris sent me a Fenwick and I didn't get it loaded. Chris sent me an original Fenwick. I've been telling Chris, should I tell them, Chris, about my big idea for your Fenwicks? I think I think Chris, I don't think he should charge for it because it's derivative graphics, but I'm thinking that Chris should do NFTs to make sure that you know that you have an original Fenwick as opposed to a faux Fenwick. So I think that if he sends you one, we should get it in the blockchain.
Well, I got a message from Preto over the weekend. He goes, Alex has decreed that any lower third graphic is now called a lower Fenwick. And I'm like, that totally robs my work. Like,
been Kleenexified.
Did I say that?
You're generic now.
So I apologize. I take it back. If it's we were just talking. I think we were just talking off the cuff there. So if it's a but I think it's an authentic. It can be a lower Fenwick, but the question is whether it's an authentic Fenwick as opposed to whether it's a faux Fenwick. And I think that is
we've spent entirely too much time saying my name.
I know. It's great though. It's great. So I don't have. The bottom is not.
It's in Discord. Let's watch Alex do this. You could pull it out of Discord.
Okay, hold on.
You can load it into a media bin. Come on, eat your dog food, Alex. Eat your dog food. I'm challenging you.
I don't like to do things live. It's not really it's not my way.
There's only about 16 of us here, so.
Okay. Why don't we start on I'll get mine up. I'll just go last.
Oh no, screen share. Let's watch the whole thing go down.
No, I'm not going to screen share my thing. Hold on. Let me.
It's a tutorial. It's a live tutorial.
All right. Hold on. Let's see here. So, it's just a TIFF. Oh, I thought you sent me a keynote.
No, it's just a TIFF. Drag it in. Simple.
While you're doing that, Alex, can we ask, can a lower Fenwick come with a guitar solo for impact?
Only if you can get the ATEM to trigger it.
Yeah.
I'm in vMix.
I'm picturing the Discord message that I'm going to get like in a few minutes from Fenwick going, how do I make an NFT? Like, is there some crypto stuff involved in this?
Yeah, we're expecting a
tutorial.
By
the way,
Mr.
I heard
Fenwick,
that there was a Chronicles question while I was.
I think someone was just asking if I'd watched the Chronicles.
Yeah. From what I've heard, I have not watched any of Connections, but from what I've heard, Connections is a far superior show to Chronicles. Chronicles was historic. We were on the front row of a lot of technology, but it was a really low budget show.
Chris, one thing that people have talked about since we're placing all this value on a authentic Fenwick, which I personally place a lot of value on too, is that maybe it should set up a little bit higher because the name that Zoom kicks out can block it a bit.
No.
Oh, he will not. Chris is not accepting that.
No, I'm not framing it for a Zoom window. And here's the reason why. Jesse.
He will not compromise his artistic vision, okay?
No, it's
I know that.
What you're asking me to do is aim at a moving target. If there's only 4 people in your room, the title changes. The Zoom title changes size.
Fenwick, I just thought you'd want to make it screen safe because it's such a work of art.
Oh wait, Alex is working. I thought you were going to give me a hard time over the artwork that I chose for you.
I know, it's great. It's good. So,
by the way, that is derived from our friend Jeffrey Orthwine. The tank metaphor. He goes, I was talking to him once about you, and he goes, yeah, Alex tends to bring the tank to the grocery store once in a while. And I said, I'm using that.
So there it is. So I did media player 1, media key 1. I set it to pre-multiplied.
Downstream key.
Downstream key in my key 1. And again, this shows you the advantage of what I can do is still circle things over top of it because I have the downstream 1 is underneath the downstream 2.
And downstream 2 is your telestrator.
Yeah, exactly. So now if I cut back, you'll see there's my there is the my lower Fenwick, an original. Not very accurate, but an original. So,
and Banksy's got nothing on Fenwick.
I think metaphorically that is pretty accurate.
Yeah. So
microphone, Zoom, and a defense department budget in between.
Yeah. Go ahead, Stuart.
I have to question that accuracy, Bill, because that's not a tank. That's a mobile gun.
Oh no! Here we go.
So So what I actually have in between here is I have the Heil PR40, and then that is going into a Scorpio. The Scorpio is applying, I believe, let me see real quick here. Scorpio is applying a -5 dB of noise assist, and then that is going via USB-C into my Mac, into an iMac. So that's it. How does it sound to everybody?
I think you sound great.
Sounds good. Yeah.
Yeah, really good.
Yeah.
I mean, it's okay.
I mean, a big thing is that it is hold on. Here we go. I need to set that to auto. Anyway, I set that to a macro because the anyway, long story. The distance to mic, super important. Like we'll keep on talking about that. Like there's no shame in showing your mic in public. That's all I'm saying. You know, you just need to like, you just put that mic out there and let you know, keeping it out, trying to keep it out of frame is reducing the quality of our experience when we listen to it. And we have to remember that my guess is that by the end of the year, probably 90% of our listeners will be listeners, not because we're going to get this into the podcast in July. So finally, it took me a little bit of back and forth to figure some stuff out, but we're going to put it in July. We'll have it in as a podcast. And once we do that, it's going to increase. And so that's why we want to optimize for audio, because the vast majority of the data is discussion. Go ahead, Greg.
I was gonna say I somehow feel like that was targeted directly at my old school tendencies.
Yeah, I'm just saying. There's a radio mic right up. You know,
but the thing is, Alex, you have a certain voice quality that sounds good on any microphone.
Yeah, but I think it sounds better on with good proximity. So it's, I mean, if I do a shotgun, I have a shotgun right here, and I could probably turn it on, but we'll if we have time. But see,
what Mac are you using?
iMac 2017 is the one that I have sitting here right now. I'm about to replace it with a M1 Mac Mini so that I can have a flyable monitor. So it's just here for the moment until I get that, until it shows up. I already ordered it. So yeah. So there we go. Jeffrey, let's have you go ahead and give us an example.
Okay. First of all, I'd like to find out how many people actually have original audio on or off, because I think that's going to be very important in this Ruthless review.
I have original audio on. On. Thumbs up for on. Yeah. So almost everybody has it on. Yep.
So I think with the review, we need to have it on for everybody. And then if that doesn't work,
I think overall we just want to listen to the overall quality of the sound. I mean, that's what it's the output that we want to look at there. So and by the way, if you guys have questions, we're probably going to have time at the very end to answer a few questions. So if questions come up as we do it, we'll keep moving. So go ahead, Jeffrey, talk a little bit.
Okay, so yeah, I have my I don't have my faux Fenwick out because I don't have the right profile up on the video, but I have my SM58. This is a Beta 58 going into a QSC Touch mix. There is a little bit of EQ in the QSC Touch mix, but and I think I have a very, very low gate just so it doesn't get while I'm walking around. And then that's coming into the computer. I use Wirecast, and that there is a little bit of noise suppression in Wirecast I use, and I bump up the volume just a little bit to send out to you guys.
The low end feels like it could have been more. What happens if you get closer to that mic?
Oh, it'll get a lot better, but I'll have to bring down my voice.
That was probably too close, but yeah. Like almost like lean into it a little bit more.
So if I well, how about if I do this?
Yeah.
There we go. So now I say Peter Piper picked a peck of pickled peppers while Sally sells seashells by the seashore, and I know my my video audio sync is off.
We're not worried about that right now.
Yeah, I know.
It still sounds thin for that mic. You know, like it is there. Are you what are you doing in the EQ?
EQ is pretty flat line. I turn up the
But you turn up somewhere in the middle, right?
1,000, just a slight bump up, and then a slight hump over at the 5,000 range.
But, what happens if you turn that EQ off?
Yeah. This is the sound with the EQ off right here.
which I like
Peter
better.
Piper picked. You like a lot better? Okay.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah, that's why it sounds a little thin, is because you're pulling it up at that 1 and 5 is the
it's messing with my reference.
Yeah, so and then lean just a little, pull the mic just a little closer to your mouth.
I'm gonna have to move to the mic in this
That's
case.
fine.
So
that's fine.
There we go. Peter Piper picked a peck of pickled peppers while Sally sells seashells by the seashore.
So much better. Like so much better.
Well, yeah, because this microphone is meant for that.
It's meant for that distance.
Rather.
Yeah. Like, you know, it's you could use another mic and have it further away, but if you're going to use that mic, I would highly recommend getting that close to it. It sounds 2 or 3 times better. That
if I switch to the Heil, I'd still have to have that distance as well, right?
And that's okay. That's if you watch any of the radio shows that record, you're seeing them using SMB 7s or whatever. They're all right on. You know, if you're thinking of yourself as a radio show with video, which is really what I view this as, is a radio show with video. You know, we do a little bit of video here and there, but you could totally listen to it, and we want that audio quality to be the highest. And so I would recommend with that mic to get closer and to get rid of that EQ. I literally, I think it's like 2 or 3 times better now.
Okay. I'll take a look at it. Thank you.
And the Heil will sound better than that one too. So just, you know, that if you have the Heil, but if you have that, do you have a Heil? The only reason I asked is because you mentioned that.
No, I do not have a Heil.
And that one's fine then. Like it sounds great when you get a little closer to it, but it always has sounded just a little tinty. And I think that solved that. Jesse, let's go ahead and go ahead and tell us what your chain is.
Sure. I'm speaking into a Heil PR31 going into a Shure MVI that's set to, there's a specific profile for voice. And then I'm going into a MacBook Pro.
Try changing that one from voice to like music.
So I don't know if you can see the graphic well enough to know that now I'm speaking on the one that's got a dialog box with a music node inside.
Uh-huh.
Should I switch it again to one that's a guitar?
No.
You want to hear that?
Don't need the guitar. Okay. But this one just is more full range.
Is it? Okay.
Yeah. So I would stick with the one that's more full range than the one. I have the same box that you do. So the and I've experimented with that a little bit. It sounds weaker than that mic should be. I don't know that mic well enough. I don't know the PR30. Is it an end address or side address mic?
It's a front address mic.
Front, yeah.
It's the same as there's a whole story behind it that has to do with, it's technically PR31BW, which stands for Brian Walker, Bob Walker, something like that.
Black and white.
No, it's not black and white. And he had them design a mic he could put by drums that was just more compact than the PR40.
Uh-huh.
I don't know if the interior of it or the diaphragm, whatever the part is that picks up the voice, I don't know if it's changed from the PR40. I love the sound that's used on Twit, which is why I wanted a Heil, because I was using for a little while. Once I bought the Shure, I was able to use the XR mic that my dad had, the Sennheiser MD431, which is a nice mic, but it doesn't have the warmth that I always heard from you and Leo and the others in this panel that use it. So this mic was $270, less expensive than the Sennheiser, but I love the sound of it. So for me, a lot of it is, you helped me a bit last time. I was having a lot of popping. I know it affects people that have just a sensitivity to it. I have it coming even more than a 45-degree angle. It's probably on a 60-degree angle when I'm talking.
And can you turn off your lower Fenwick so we can see the? Okay. Just so I can see where the mic is, because I can't see it. Okay, there we go. Yep.
Yeah, so I think changing the angle for me, maybe just the way I talk, it's better. And there's a whole learning curve.
Can you move a little closer to it? Closer to the mic.
So, yeah. So now I'll move the mic a little bit closer to me. Is that sounding better?
Oh yeah.
Is it too loud though?
No.
And there's no popping?
No, as long as you go across it, you'll be fine.
Okay.
but I would definitely, coming across it is going to be fine. In fact, you probably pull it forward just a touch, and you probably get a little bit more, and talk a little bit.
Sure. So probably the most important investment I made in my audio chain was not this mic, was not the Shure. It was this $30 desk-mounted swing arm to bring the mic to the proper position.
Right.
Before I was using the Yeti Nano, which you can see behind me, it's still a decent mic. And I did mount it on this and just getting it closer. Before I was getting comments from Mickey, because I had it just on its little stand, which encourages you in a way to not have it in the proper location.
Right. That's
and I was
the problem.
getting so much room reverberation. I don't have any treatment for sound in here. Excuse me. So when I brought the mic closer, obviously I could reduce the gain, and it just, I didn't need to get noise suppression anymore. All these things people were recommending for me, like needing a mixed pre.
And what's interesting is I guess the numbers show that you're coming in pretty hot, but I don't hear it. It doesn't sound hot to me, but it does sound hot to everybody else. So everyone's it's coming in pretty hot. So we might want to turn that down a little bit as far as the volume there. I don't know why it doesn't occur to me that way. Maybe I just have it turned down too low.
Maybe it's just, I think when it sounds, sorry, my voice is now getting a little crackly, but I think when the mic sounds good, you don't mind it being a little bit louder, maybe.
Yeah.
I've got to just say thanks to Brian, because he's not on the panel now, but when we were having a conversation about audio and people were asking for things to be explained like to a child, and he talked about gating. And when Jeffrey was talking about how he's got an audio gate, I would have had no idea what he's talking about. But the whole, like, only the big dogs come out when you set the gate. I mean, that was such a great metaphor.
Well, and do you, are you doing any EQ?
I would not know how to do that.
Okay, that's great. That's great.
Yeah.
Yep. Go ahead, Bill.
My concern, though, you said it was originally designed as a drum mic, and one of the main design criteria for that is that it handles a maximum sound pressure level really well, which means that they tend to be less responsive than mics that are not designed for that use case. So I would worry a little bit that maybe by picking that model, you're de-emphasizing some of the clarity and transient response that you might get from a PR40 or something else.
I think I may have overstated it, Bill. I think it if you go to the website, it does say that it's a universal mic for everything, including.
Well, yeah, I know, but in terms, like, I used to use the Sennheiser 421U in radio all the time, but in part that's because it was professional announcers who have really strong lungs and project really well. So
yeah, I think that
relatively insensitive.
Well, I think that it
was fine.
I think
but
specifically,
it's not what the mic is designed for.
It'd be interesting to get a PR30 and a PR40 together. I think that my experience with the PR30 is that the high end isn't quite as sensitive, so it rolls off a little bit at the high end in a way that the PR40 doesn't. And I feel like I'm hearing that just a little bit, where I'm hearing just a little bit of roll off on the high end transients. So,
Alex, is there a difference between a PR30 and a PR31? Because this is a 31.
I think that they're probably pretty close to each other. I'm not sure.
One thing,
it'd be good to hear you on both of them. We'll see if we can find an extra PR40.
Well, John Edelson has the PR31 and the PR40.
We'll see
because he talked about it. One other thing, and now I'm spacing out on it. Oh yeah, I looked at the specs. So YouTube had nothing on comparing the different Heils because I was curious. I would have bought the PR40 if I could have found a comparison that said it was much better. And I hear all you guys on the PR40, so that was really my gold standard. But I looked at the specifications. There is more low-end sensitivity on the PR40. It's got a wider range pickup on the specs than there is on the PR31.
Right. Yeah. And I think that the transients sound different. But anyway, yeah, go ahead, Carl.
So I'm looking at the frequency graph and the pickup graph for the 31 at the moment. It's identical to a 57, which is a drum mic. So it looks like this is it's not a copy of the 57, because this is supercardioid where the 57's just cardioid. This is minor supercardioid. But yeah, it's a little bit more sensitive than the 57. So it's about 8 dB more sensitive. So that's kind of where it's good in a way. But the actual pickup pattern as far as it has a dip at around 6K, 7K, which is a 5758 signature.
Go ahead, Jeffrey.
Yeah, the 40 is a 28 hertz to 18 kilohertz, whereas your 31 is 40 hertz to 18 kilohertz, and that's a cardioid versus the other 30, the 30, which is a super cardioid, so it has a lot less off-axis rejection there. But they should match up pretty well because you don't have a boomy bass voice.
Right. Well, we should definitely. It'd be good to test them side by side. So that'd be good. But anyway, it sounds good, and it sounds better when you're a little closer. So it's a good sounding mic. Jim, let's go. Let's have you give us a sample.
Sure. So I'm using a Heil PR40 into a Mix Pre 3 over into my MacBook Pro M1 with loopback and audio hijack.
And are you doing any EQ?
No EQ. Just a noise assist. That's it.
How much noise assist?
Minus 12. I have a lot of traffic noise and HVAC, and that seems to.
What happens if you can you turn that noise assist to -5?
Sure. It actually was at -9. I thought it was 12. Let's see.
Mm-hmm.
This is my eye test now. Okay, -5 now. Sound any different?
Yeah, it sounds fuller. A little bit more of the transients are there. And I don't hear any more background. So one of the things that I found that with that noise assist is that I rarely turn it over 6. And I find that it starts to pull my high ends. It starts to go out there and start grabbing onto some of the transients and everything else in my voice. If you need it, you can turn it up. But it's one of those things like, 5 is where, 3 to 5 is where I kind of live. And this is something we learned with the Cedar as well, is that you just turn that thing up and it starts to go into those upper ends and get rid of that too. I think I don't know if other people hear it. I feel like it sounds a little more breathing a little bit more than it did before. Does anyone else have that opinion that it's little? Go ahead and talk a little bit more, Jim.
Yeah, sure. So again, the Heil PR40 into a Mix Pre 3 into a MacBook Pro M1 with loopback and audio hijack.
And you're not doing anything with the low end. The low end feels a little thinner than I think it could be.
I just have a I think it's a 40 hertz low cut.
What happens if you turn that off?
Sure.
And what if you square directly on that microphone? Like, I mean, I'm to the side, but I'm a naturally loud person. I think like right like this. See if that makes a difference.
So sorry, what was the position again? I just
directly in front of you.
Oh, directly. Yeah, okay. How about that? So the low cut is off now, and I've changed the position of the mic.
There's more of the deep register, and there's more sibilance as well, which is bringing the high end of transients. Yeah.
And we're not hearing anything from that, from that taking off that low cut and.
Yeah, I sometimes get traffic noises until I have there's a large window that I have blacked out.
Well, obviously you have to get rid of that window, but that's a whole nother problem. Just kidding.
Yeah, but I have like InnoWindows, coming to help knock that down a bit. So, yeah.
I think that sounds better. Does that sound better to as we keep on? We're getting into kind of a crazy level of tuning
this
here.
This is fun. Yeah.
It's again, I was listening to it the other day, while I was off air and just listening to it on my AirPod Maxes or whatever, and just thinking, it was like, wow, this is a great sounding show. It's worth doing this because it's so nice to listen. It's so pleasurable to listen to the show because everyone's playing so hard, and it's much better than. I think now the problem is it's ruined me because, again, as I said before, I listen to NPR and they go to a phoner and I'm just like, why can't we just send them a mic? Anyway, go ahead. That's great work, Jim. Richard?
So this is the Heil PR40 into the Mix Pre 3 into an iMac. It doesn't go into loopback. It has -6 dB of noise assist as well.
And I would cut the distance between you and the mic in half to just see what happens.
Yeah, okay. That's the distance cut down a little bit and speaking a bit more into it.
I like that better. Again, the hard part is that you try to keep the Heil out of the mic. The Heil is a mic that you kind of is a radio mic. You kind of have to sit on it to, like really get, to really be right on the mic to get it to do what it's designed to do. That sounds better. Go ahead, talk a little bit more.
Yeah, sure. My Mac is now picking up a little bit of fan noise, so it's kicked up a little gear for some reason. So I don't know if that's coming through a little bit more, but yeah, this is continuing to
maybe
talk.
Turn it up just a touch. It's just a little low.
The dB?
Yeah, just 1 or 2 dB.
Okay, so that's going up 1 dB there, and now 2 dB. That's good. I've kind of quietened my voice a little bit, I suppose, when I'm talking as well, just to out of natural. But that's it. It's at 71 dB gain.
Mm-hmm. Anyone have any other comments? I think it sounds pretty good. Yeah, it sounds great. Excellent. Carl, what do you got?
All right, so I've got a B906 going into a Behringer Flow. So I've got the 906, which is about 54 dB, so it's about 6 dB louder than an SM58, and that gives my flow a bit of headroom. So my gain is not 4, I've actually got unity gain. I've got my gain sitting at 0. I've got my output level, which is, well, the gain is actually analog. That's the only part that is analog in the flow is a gain. After that, it's all digital. So I wanted unity gain. So this mic actually works really well with the flow at unity gain on the mic preamps. So I'm quite happy with that. I do have a notch EQ filter, very narrow, because I actually got a spectrum analyzer to figure out my light fans, and they hum up one note. So I just pulled that notch out, which doesn't, and it's a bit high anyway. So it's much higher than 1K, 800 hertz, which is where my voice would normally sit at, well, between 500 and 1,000. So it's not affecting my voice, but it does get rid of it. I've got that pulled down by 6 dB.
Go ahead, Greg.
I think Carl, you need quite a bit more high end and high mids, maybe a little bump at 3K or something. It sounds a little muddy to me, and you've already admitted that you talk fast, so sometimes some of the words get lost in the fuzz. That would just be my.
So I've just gone up 3 dB there at 3K.
Huge difference already. Yeah. Try a little cut at 500.
Okay. So that's a 3 dB cut at 500.
I've got room tone. Does anyone hear that?
Yeah, definitely hearing a little room tone.
Yeah, so that's because we've gone up around a 3K, I think.
Mm-hmm.
So if I go back to the 3, it's actually 2.6K. That's where I'm sitting at the moment. So if I come down to -6 there, so that's -6 now at 2.6K. It's raining. It's just started raining. So that's where your ringtone may be coming from. So it's been raining. It's been raining all day here in Adelaide. It actually just stopped when we started the second hour, but now it started again. So I think that's what it is, because I've got my in-ears, but now I can actually just hear the rain on the roof.
And are you doing any kind of compression or noise reduction?
Nope. So just a little bit of EQ, not GQ, just to get rid of the fans. But I don't like using compression and that kind of stuff. So there's no noise reduction on the flow. It just has nice EQs. Mm-hmm. They may add it in, who knows. But I found that it's just one fan noise that I've got. Now I've got the rain. So that's going to have some broad spectrum noise now.
Sounds good. Any other comments? All right, let's move to the next one. Go ahead, Taylor.
Okay. My audio chain is actually quite simple. It's a RE20 broadcast mic going into a Focusrite 2i2 going directly into Zoom, into the computer.
It sounds clean. I don't have a lot of comments.
And this is the type of microphone that I know I have to be right up on, because this is a true industry standard broadcast mic.
Yeah, it's the mic that half of us. It's the Sennheiser. I think it was 421. Is that right? The Sennheiser, the RE20. Those are the two that pretty much every radio station that I worked with, until the Heil started going into it, and then suddenly we started seeing Heil PR40s. Sounds good. Any other comments? From a visual perspective, I'd probably pick a darker color foam. that would be the only thing that I would do instead of red, just because it competes with you. But that's for Thursday.
Okay.
But I wouldn't take that out. I would just go for a black foam, if you have one.
Oh, that's fine. I can. I think I have a basket full of them up at the station. I just got to grab a different one.
Exactly. But I think, go ahead, Greg.
Oh, but why do you have it?
Yeah, that was going to be my question. I mean, if you've ever taken one of these apart, there's a stupefying, like the filter in this thing is ridiculous.
Well, why don't you go ahead and take it off and let's see what it sounds like.
I'd lose it.
I think it's a fashion accessory. It's like a pair of socks. He's got all these.
I think that looks better.
Yeah, go ahead.
All right. What about now? Do I sound any
much
better? Different? Same?
Yeah,
much better?
It sounds better.
A little bit more high end.
Yep.
Oh, okay. I'll leave it off then.
Yeah. No, it sounds better.
Yeah, I'm not emotionally attached to this thing. I can get rid of it.
Very good. Very good. Okay, great. No, it sounds good. Sounds great, Taylor. Jason, let's go ahead to you.
All right. I actually have a faux Fenwick that is far out of date because hopefully my sync is actually in sync. But at least the very beginning of this is correct. It's a Heil PR40 into an AFX channel. And mind you, not all those lights are on. In fact, almost none of them are on. I've got about maybe 52 dB of gain going in and a low rollout and no compression now that I'm looking at the board, and just a little bit on the parametric. Other than that, it's pretty clean straight through, and that goes into oh man, I had to change the embedder because of the sync. So just a Scarlett 2i4 going directly in.
And what happens if you take that roll off? Where's it rolling off?
75 hertz. You really want me to turn off?
Just turn off 75. Sounds like.
Okay, you got it.
Humor me.
The day my voice can go to 75 hertz.
It's not that it's not just that your voice is going to that. There's reverbance that actually is down there.
Sure.
That you give up when you roll it off. That's all. Go ahead and talk about it.
Okay, so here it is with the low pass roll completely off, which means that there's no filtration whatsoever. I naturally have a deep voice and I'm naturally very loud, which is why I tend to not speak directly into the microphone. So there's your sample. What do you think?
It still feels like it's not full range. Like it doesn't feel like I'm
probably
getting
the
whole
cheap
range.
sound card that I had to jack into this thing.
Maybe. I would love to listen to it at some point without the AFX.
That's easy enough, but it's going to take me a second to patch into the Allen and Heath. I could do that.
We'll come back to you. Let's hear it without the AFX.
If I was in my mini truck in high school with a 10-band EQ, I would say the top 4 or 5 bands are all pulled all the way down. That's what it always sounds like to me.
Yeah. Let's go to William. William.
Okay, I've got the Heil PR40 into a Rodecaster, then into an ATEM TV Studio HD, then into a Mac.
And are you doing any EQ?
Actually, I was sort of hoping that George was going to be here because the Rodecaster has sort of like you choose a setting. So I don't know what's going on inside of that setting for the mic.
Right.
So I don't have a separate EQ.
It sounds like it's rolling off a little bit, for the EQ. Like it's and so and then I would also turn that mic is super sensitive, so I would turn it towards your mouth a little bit more, so you can see how it's leaning up towards your eyes. You want to just lean it so it's really right at your mouth, and then I get a little closer, pull it just a little closer than what you have there. It's like this mic is like inches. Like it's like that. That's the thing with the PR40 is the difference between thin and full is about an inch and a half. Go ahead and try it again.
Right. Sure. So inverse square laws have that effect. So is this better? It
is. It still feels like the low end is just a little is missing, from it. Not missing, but somewhat lost. It's like
I'll see if I can find it. Does someone else work with the Rodecaster?
I don't know if anybody else has one, but but I would try to get a flat response out of it. The thing about the Heil is that my experience is it doesn't really need any, well, I don't know. For me, it needs very little EQ.
All right, so here's my bypass. If it makes any difference whatsoever, that is directly into an extremely cheap sound card, which really bothers me, but I would rather come through a cheap sound card than not be in sync.
Lean towards that mic just a little bit.
Hey, you got it. Usually I'm the one, I was the guy on the stage that you didn't have to mic. So, yeah, there it is. I'm going to take my own sip of my own medicine and put it directly in front of me.
I don't think that Aphex is buying you anything.
That's fine by me. I'm using it as a very expensive preamp in the moment at the moment, and a digitizer. Everything else is bypassed.
Yeah. So I'd bypass it. And William, I want to go back to you again, just to hear you one more time.
All right. I don't know if I found anything that helped. That had a button for big bottom that I turned off.
I have a fat bottom girls button, and I turned it on immediately.
All right.
Sorry.
I figured I needed all the stability I could have.
No, I think it sounds good. Any other comments there? I think it's good. All right. Well done.
May I ask one thing?
Yeah.
Could I check one other mic, because when I'm teaching, I move about.
So we'll come back to you.
I'll come back. Sure. Thank you.
Go ahead, Bill.
Oh, is it me up? All right.
You're up.
Hi. Good morning, everybody. This is me talking into a Neumann TLM 103. I do, in fact, have turn on original sound, because when Mickey and I were playing and I got loopback out of my chain, we determined that the room is just a little bit noisy without it. So if you want to hear it with it off, I'll turn it off. But this is the normal sound of me every day.
Yeah, go ahead, Stuart.
Bill, can you rock backward and forward in your chair?
Oh,
you looking for the squeak?
I swear I could hear the squeak or the spring in it.
Yeah.
There it is. There it is. I try to stay still.
Ruthless.
Ruthless.
That's
Yes.
Ruthless, yeah.
No, Ruthless would be asking you to have a Timberlake module, Jason.
Oh,
to correct your
stop.
sync issue.
Stop.
I think it sounds good. That's the hardest part with the 103s and the one. I have a 102 and you have a 103, and the 102 is still like, I put it in for a little while and it just picks up my whole room, and I just can't. I couldn't make it work.
I just turned off original sound, and so if I am really quiet, you'll probably hear the ceiling fan, which is silent. I don't know.
It's a little bit, but it's pretty minor.
Just picked up everything.
Yeah.
I haven't used a condenser in years for exactly that reason.
Otherwise, obviously, you've got the voice that can go to any mic, so it sounds good. Yeah. So it's there's so I think that it works well. Yeah. Sounds good. Yeah. Right. Greg.
Okay. So this is the a little Neumann KM140, which is the cardioid changeable capsules, and that is going into an Apogee Duet interface, and then into the computer. And I do have audio hijack running, so I have a little bit of RX7 noise reduction going on, very, very light, just to get rid of the fan. Tiny bit of compression. I can probably tell you the settings. I'm at 2-to-1 at a kind of a medium fast attack and a medium release. Threshold at -24 or so. And a little bit of EQ. I've got a looks like a 4 dB boost around 74, and a -6 at 1200.
-6 at 1200. That's an interesting.
-6 at 1200.
Is that to DS? That's the wrong frequency. What's that for?
No, it's not DSing.
Greg's like, I'm not DSing it then.
Well, no, I'm like, what?
Just insulted him.
I don't like 1K.
I don't DS. I don't.
I don't
DS.
It's like from one of the sideways or whatever. I will not drink Merlot. It's like I will not DS at 1200. You know, like that's going to be the new like I do not DS at 1200.
Bumper sticker.
Okay, so you want to hear it without the dip.
Yeah, let's hear it without the dip.
Okay, there's flat at 1K.
No, it sounds better.
And,
it sounds better with the dip that you had.
Sure does. Your low mid sounded great.
Turns out Greg has them. Greg knows what he's doing.
Gee, okay.
Greg, what's your input device?
I did something right.
Greg has a rogue peak in his voice.
Especially when you accuse him of de-essing at 1200, man.
I mean, I can't believe that even came out of your mouth, Jason. I mean, we talk about being
Me
appropriate.
either. Me either. I'm shocked.
Boy, with friends like these.
So Greg, it sounds good. I know that there's more in your voice that we're not getting. I think that's the only thing that I'm left with is that there's more there. There's more there, and it sounds really good. You have a good voice, and it's a good mic, so it's well within, great sounding. And I know that there's more there. That's all I'm going to say.
No. I could. Did you guys do you remember the Octava? Did you guys like the Octava better?
Yeah, I did.
Okay, no, that's fine. But also I could, next time I could try the 421 on a stand and
let's try that
and close in like radio style like you guys.
Yeah, let's try that. Let's try the 421. I just know you have. I can hear the voice. I can hear it there, and I just feel like we're not getting all of it. So
okay, no,
yeah. Okay,
I'm perfectly willing to do that. Sure.
Greg, is that mic not made anymore? I was just trying to see what it looks like because I can't see it on your screen, and Sweetwater doesn't seem to carry it. Is it an old mic?
No, it's you have to look up KM100. If you're looking on the Neumann site, look up the KM100. It's a body.
It's an interchangeable capsule mic, right?
Exactly. So I have a matched pair with both cardioid and hyper capsules.
Cool.
I used to use it a lot. I actually haven't used them for quite a while, and I just found them actually in my basement. So
next time I want to hear the stereo cross. That'd be awesome.
Very good.
But I just dragged them out to see what it would be like. But I like the Octavas too. I think the Octava is a fantastic value in a small diaphragm mic.
Yeah. There's a lot of good transients and upper end. It's just that it's not as full as I think it could be.
If money were no object, what would be the best mic out there?
Oh, I'm a big Sanken fan personally. I like my go-to shotgun. If I could only have one mic, it would be the CS3. And I can use that for everything. I like the little Sanken short shotguns, the little ones. I haven't used them much, but the times I have, they sounded great. Other than that, the Sennheiser series, MKH series, the 40, 50, and 60s. Sheps, of course, but I tend to be in high humidity environments, not necessarily here in Norway, but in my past, and they don't work that well in high humidity.
They go all the way to a Sony C800G. They only run about 10 grand a pop, and they make a really, really good voiceover mic.
Yeah, I had 5 or 6 of those at one time, and no, I didn't. Okay, thank you. Any other? Sorry.
Yeah, go ahead. Any other comments? Yeah, go ahead, Stuart.
Is the braid new, or is it is the Zoom clearer today and we can actually see it?
That's it's the treatments, Stuart. I can't really say much more about it, but that's one of the side effects of the treatments.
Chemical beard braiding, that's weird.
I think that the Earth there's a couple that in studios that I thought sounded really good were Earthworks. I don't remember which one, but it was a really, really good mic. And the U87. I mean, the U87 is kind of the classic vocal for singing mic. I mean, he said any price, so I was like, it's a little expensive.
Who makes that?
Keep in mind, we're talking about cars here at this point.
Neumann U87. That's why Mickey is $3,200 because Mickey likes the U87s. But even Mickey doesn't use a U87 for the show. There's a studio down in Culver City that I've worked at that has Earthworks that sound really, really good. There's another mic company that out of Germany, and the guy makes them in his house, like by hand. And I ran into him at the Sound Devices booth, and it's like $8,000. I'm like, and I just want to hear my voice in it. I haven't had the chance to hear my voice, and I got to ask John to tell us about who that is. Anyway, so, but the one that I really leaned into, I've never actually heard my voice on a U87, so I don't have any opinion about it. Never had the money to use it. But the Earthworks, I was like, oh, I need that mic. But then I found out how much it was, and then I was like, no, I don't need that mic. The Heil will be fine. We're gonna run out of time. Stuart, great work, Greg. I'll be interested to see what the 421 sounds like. Okay,
yeah,
Stuart?
I'll put that on next time.
From the opposite end of the budget, I'm using a Behringer C1, which cost all of $39 from a secondhand store, into a Xenix mixer, which has got a little bit of roll off on the high ends and a bit of a boost in the mids, into vMix, where there is no equalization, no compression. It's just converted into an NDI and sent to the Zoom laptop.
I'd be curious what you sound like.
And it's all of about 2-3 inches away from my face.
What happens if you get closer? Just out of curiosity.
If I get closer, I can see even less of that screen from my right eye than I can at the moment.
Oh,
Yeah,
stop being practical.
More on axis.
There we go. So that is literally that far off of my nose right now. Okay, it's right there. But yeah, it's just off to the side so that I can see the screens.
Right. No, that's why some of us use the undersling. Is just same problem, different solution.
And it is a side on pattern for the microphone too. So
yeah, the reason I ask is that it just has kind of a bit of a center sound to it. So there's a little bit of transient, but not a lot of high end, not a lot of air, and there's not a lot of low end, to it. And so that's why I was trying to figure out if proximity would bias a little bit more. But it didn't make any difference. I mean, it didn't make any significant difference to me.
Nope.
Sounds good. I mean, it sounds good. It's definitely gotten way better than it was.
$39. That sounds pretty
$39.
dang
It's a great
good.
deal.
39 Australian secondhand, which would be about 20 US.
That's a good deal. Yeah, absolutely.
Oh yeah.
All right, Mr. Fenwick. Oh, go ahead, Carl, real quick.
I just want to ask Stuart, you said you got your high end, so you got your 12K. How far have you got your 12K turned down? How many dB?
It's just using the parametric equalizer on the Xenix mixer. It's not a.
So he has no idea. That's what he's telling you.
So you've got 3 knobs on the Xenix mixer. So, the high knob is 12K. So how far down is the 12K, the high knob?
About a quarter of the way off the center. Actually, hang on.
10 o'clock.
Looking at the image on the website, and I'll just put the mouse over the top of it to zoom it in, and reverse the mids on channel 1 and put the lows centered, and the high is about where the high is on that graphic.
So it's about minus 2 dB, minus 3 dB. So it's minus 15 dB total, I believe, on those. So that's where we're losing a little bit of your presence, because it's actually a shelving filter. It's not a roll-off. It's a hard shelf. So.
Yeah, I thought it was a Perkins EQ, which was what was confusing me.
It's a British EQ, so it's a shelving.
Yeah. Cool. All right. Mr. Fenwick, you're the last one.
I haven't changed anything a long time. I will say, however, I had a lot of trouble with my Mix Pre the other day. It didn't boot up. I had to rewire it and plug it into a different port on a USB hub to get it to work again.
You are having some issues where
tearing,
like you're having this.
Sounds like your sound card is stubbing its toe.
Yeah, it's like
it may be because it's plugged into the hub now, but plugged in directly into the computer. It actually wasn't even directly into the computer. It used to be plugged into my second monitor, which also has a hub in it. It's now the hub is plugged directly into the iMac.
So I think it's the hub.
Yeah.
So it's the hub, and it's something else on the hub using the hub while you're talking anything, like just a little check-in going,
yep,
hello, and it's causing
the
this.
other thing on that hub is a monitor.
Yeah, but there's something
Could just be a capacitor or something that's angry.
But there's something else sharing that hub that's using it and causing it to it just goes and then
I'll try and see if I can rewire it and get it directly into the computer.
It's pretty significant. It's like it's not like a little. It's a significant.
Well, let me do it right now.
Okay. So I thought I figured out what it was. So I thought it was. So yeah, you're right. It's what it's actually. It's holding the last value that it got. It's missing a packet, and it just holds that last value until it gets a new packet.
Yep. I think that's it. Let's while Chris is doing that, we'll answer a couple questions real quick. We're going to run just a little heavy, but we'll buzz through these really fast. So go ahead and
do you want me to go back to the original first hour questions, or we're
just going to cut through the questions that we have here. Yep.
Okay. So Douglas Carmichael has one in here. When we're putting together a large audio or lighting system, how do you properly size your power needs so that you don't have voltage drops on the peaks, for example, flashes and strobes, kick drum hits, and so forth?
Yeah, go ahead, Carl.
So one that you can either hire an electrician. That's a good idea if you've got a pretty big gig. If not, there is software that'll tell you your loads, and you can actually lay it out in parallel and series, and it'll tell you what you need at what end.
I run a lot of the stuff through, and I specifically look at the startup usage. So I run a lot of things through something like a kilowatt. It's like a little plug that will tell you how many watts you're using. We oftentimes get that with our UPSs. They'll tell us what the draw is, and we'll calculate it on startup or with all the lights on or all the things as hot as they could possibly be, and then we double it. and that's generally how we approach that. And then we still have a place where we could go. We could get more if we needed it. But it is, if you go to your max peak and then double it, your usage is going to be more reasonable. I mean, you're rarely going to hit the top end. Go ahead, Stuart.
The term for describing that when you're talking to the electrician is inrush current, and right. Same but quadruple.
Yeah. Next question.
Abraham in San Diego says, I wanted to set up new mics for my church. What kind do you recommend? One for the preacher and one that sits in front for testimonies. Budget is not too high, and the church building size sits about 200 to 300 people.
Good, Carl.
SM58 would always be my go-to, and just let them know that you've actually got pretty close to the microphone.
For the testimonial.
I
mean, for the preacher, I would always recommend a head, either a Countryman or DPA, headset mic. There's just so much going on around them, and every time they have labs, they want to walk around and talk. And when they have labs, we just that distance starts to pick up speakers.
Also, it ends up getting messy.
So I find that it's better to give them a wireless pack with a headset. It tends to be, and to Jason's point, attaching them is a challenge. So I would recommend a headset. Go ahead, William.
How about an OSP? Yours said Elite Core H512.
I don't know it.
That's what I'm wearing. That's what I was trying to find out.
Oh, okay, yeah. Oh, this is it. Yeah. It's a little obviously thinner than your Heil, but it sounds pretty good. You talk a little bit more.
Sure. And this is going through an Audio-Technica System 10.
So I probably pull that boom down further if it will go down further. Like, so you want
it doesn't come down for this is the size of my head.
Okay. Yeah. No. Yeah. I just try to get it as close to the corner of my mouth as I can. So it doesn't sound like the Heil, but it's very serviceable. So if I was going to use it in a classroom environment, I think that would totally work. For our environment, you probably prefer a radio mic.
Right.
Yep, that's great.
Thank you.
But back to the question from San Diego is I would give the preacher a headset. I think that in that environment you're going to find that there's less sibilance in the DPA than there is in the Countryman. So for most situations, I'd probably do that and then have the but I think that it's spot on for the SM58 mounted for the testimonials or handed out. And you can also get a wireless, if you're going to hand it around for testimonials, a wireless plug. It's an XLR plug to a wireless. Electrosonic makes a great one, but Sennheiser also makes them that are less expensive. And you can use those as the transmitters. So you can have an SM58, but pass it around. And you can hook it to any mic that you want later, which is useful. Go ahead, Fenwick.
I'm just checking in to see. I rewired everything and I put my mix pre into a different port, the port that it actually was in, that it stopped working in, and now it's working again. Wondering if you guys are hearing the same anomaly.
You might have to talk for a while, so it's not like it's happening all the time. So it's like every once in a while. So, but right now we don't hear it.
Well,
so
let me tell you about the Computer Chronicles and what a fun show that was to direct. That'll only take me
so
about
far, so
a half
good.
hour.
Yeah, exactly. We're running out of time. So, but right now, let's leave it at that. Right now, it does sound like it's coming through. Yeah. Next question.
Jesse Mills in San Francisco Bay Area says, what will the new pair with a Zoom Room feature in the Zoom desktop client provide as far as connection between Zoom desktop and Zoom Rooms?
No idea, but let's take a look at it. I think that it sounds like a move forward with the Zoom Room. Next question.
TJ Asher of Minneapolis says, it sounds to me that Bill has more compression in his audio now than he used to have. Am I hearing this correctly? Not really, but we took loop back out and Mickey and I rejiggered everything so it's more direct now. So it may have a different timbre than was before.
Next question.
Gerald Grieve in Richmond. When TJ or Bill do mic checks, they put on headphones, but in today's audio R&Rs, no cans. Why? I can just speak for myself. I normally have a security type headphone because I just want to hear the conversation. I'm not looking for audio quality, but if I'm doing mic checks, I am looking for audio quality, so I move to cans.
There you go. Yep. Go ahead, Carl.
Another reason why someone who's doing mic check wants to wear closed back headphones is to get rid of their own room noise, so they're only hearing the participants' room noise rather than their own room noise.
Yep. And Bill, are you on Wi-Fi?
No, I'm not. I should be direct. Does it sound Wi-Fi drop out?
A little stutter.
Yeah, there's little stutters there.
Yeah.
You've had that all the last few hours, Bill.
Yeah.
Really?
So.
Oh, okay. Must be something in the neighborhood in AT&T's service. So sorry about that.
No worries. We're just letting you know. We're yeah. So
yeah.
All right.
Thank you for that. Oh, by the way, Alex, I have a hard out at 9 tomorrow. I've got a gig right after this. So just letting you know, tomorrow I'll be here until 9, but then 9 I'm out.
That's fine. Thanks so much to everyone. Thanks so much for our producers. Great set of questions. As always, we take you for granted, but in a good way, that we know that every day when we show up here, we're going to have a great set of answers, a great set of questions to chew on. So great work. Thanks so much. Thanks to the panel for the great answers and playing hard with this little process that we're doing here. I know that this is absurd, but that's how we roll. So we're really taking this to a whole nother level, and I appreciate the panelists that are really turning up the notches here. So thanks so much. Now we're going to jump into the post show. All right. See you on the other side.